Hey guys, what is up? It is Dean here with Burn 1. Today, about to go down with my basically Lost Decade breakdown. It's going to be a lot more comprehensive. If you don't know what the cards in Lost Decade do, probably not for you. If you have a Lost Decade playset and you're trying to figure out what you want to do with it, this is what this content is aimed for, right? This is my thoughts on this set after having played it. I'm going to go down over the junk, the stuff that's pretty much you're never going to put in a deck, and why, maybe, with a couple of the cards. I'm going to go over the level 1s, cards that provide different roles at every level, and your level 3s and like what options you have going on there, and the events in the set, which is the big highlight. I'll be going over those, talking about them a lot, what I think, and I'm hoping that you guys enjoy content like this. It usually involves me testing a set a lot. I've played about 12 to 15 different Lost Decade decks. I keep changing it. I try out different lists from other people. I try out my own list. And these are just kind of like my thoughts. If you need to, maybe refresh on some of what some of the cards do, I do recommend maybe following along with like Little Akiba to just remind yourself of what some of the effects are. So first, let's get into the junk. This is the stuff that's in the playset. I don't think you'll ever play any of this. It is almost entirely random vanilla support. It's very, very sad how bad some of these cards are, actually. We have things like, just like, there's not even like an apples outside of the TD. These cards are like you tap, give 1,000 power, and then your vanilla gets like an extra 1,000 power on your turn only or something. Like the cards are atrocious. Um, the climax combos here are, one of them is like a stock charging combo on a level 0 that you're never going to use. One's a blank climax. I don't even remember what the win trigger is. I think it's like you give power or something by losing soul. And the standby combo. The standby combo, you may use, no, actually you won't use it. You'll never use that climax blank. And I'll go over that later. And the combo itself is like, it is the worst combo I've ever seen in a standby deck in my entire life. I'll try to explain that real quick. So this is a 105k that has on reverse with the standby. Card 105k, doesn't even get power. This is like Milky Holmes Phantom Thieves levels of power for like a Shimakaze. You gain the area effect, which is when it gets front attacked, you bounce it and another card back to hand. So there's quite a few things to break down in that. You're playing standby to summon big cards on board, and then you're playing a card that's 5k you're supposed to get a reverse with. And then you're supposed to bounce your other cards back to hand that aren't the card you standbyed out. Most of the good standby targets get power for other cards on board. So you bounce back your board, your other cards get weaker. You don't even deny a reverse because this card has to be front attack first. It's not like it's kind of like a JC where you get to attack a JC first. But the thing is, like, double JC prevents your opponent from getting reverses usually. There's no way to prevent your opponent from getting reverses with this. They just run into your other stuff first. The only thing that was kind of cool is you can stand by a backup to your like board, and then it's like a pseudo gate, and that is actually, when I say that's cool, I mean that like feels like garbage. So the mixture of one, there's not good enough cards to justify playing 8 standby, because the standby trigger is not very good in this set, mixed with how truly atrocious of a combo this is, means that I really regret putting this in a deck. So you might, but like I don't think it is. Everything else in this set, the only other important thing is there's this yellow card that's a level 0 1k stock bomb. Some people do like bombs for removal. I think that it gives them like 1,000 power on attack. I don't think that's good enough. I just think that's way too little. And it's not even 500. You could say, I might be able to snipe off some like annoying effects, but 1,000 power? This card is actually too big to be useful. It doesn't hit the relevant things you would want it to. And just running a bomb to be a bomb isn't good. Any other effects in here that are good? I don't think any of the other ones are even traps. I think they're just like straight up like awful. So we'll go to the next one. Okay, so let's get into the climax combos. So this is kind of like where people need to understand about this set. This is where things get a little bit rough. So your advantage combos, you have uh, 3 level 1 combos and 2 level 2 combos. The first one is the trial deck combo. I legitimately am starting to think, after having playtested a lot of stuff, I'm starting to believe that the trial deck combo is almost the way to go if you want to have a consistent deck. It's a 1045. I forget how it gets power. I think it's like if you have like a marker or something gets power. And it combos with the gate. It's on attack top check. If you check trait or the 1/0 sword event, you get to add to hand. So it's not like the daily life one. It's like the old style one where you only get to check once. But the gate trigger is very nice. And then the climax combos with the same card, 2175, I believe, gains 1000 power if it's equipped with the blue equip. So it hits 8-5, but then if you use the sword, that the 1/0 also grabs. It hits 1095, 10-5 with the climax, right? 7-5, 8-5, 9-5. Yeah, 10-5. On reverse, draw one, blind stock one. So you get 2 combos because right, like the problem with like a lot of these other combos is that they're not good enough as like the game progresses into like level 2. Unless you're playing the level 2 combo, in which case you're foregoing level 1. This is like it has like a nice happy median by playing this gate combo. Also, gate is the best trigger of these 3. I'll go over that later. So yeah, that's the first combo. I think it's pretty good. I haven't actually sleeved up the idea that I have with that. I think that gate pants would be a pretty decent deck. I have seen that one because it has synergy with the fact that the sword is a blue event and your blue top end needs that, and then you also have like a better like segue into the later game. Next up is this choice combo. This choice combo is absolutely terrible. It is one of the worst combos I've played almost ever. It is a 1035. If you have a face-up marker, it is a 1055. So you get vanilla. You get 500 extra power over a vanilla climax combo that comes out of a TD at the cost of possibly losing 1500 power. And this card has on attack with the choice, top check 4, add 1, or add the boots. It's a 1/0 yellow event that's not really that good. So it's just a standard Magura that can grab one event. So the downside to this thing not having power is huge. I'm like talking like your opponent could randomly get hit to level 1 and then 2k counter on like a 3/5 center runner and you like actually lose board. That's pretty huge. Not only that, but even when you are playing this card, 1065, given the fact that most climax combos, like look at the tie, look at Goblin Slayer, look at like all of the climax combos that we're getting now that are like slightly board focused, they sit at 106k cross turn without a support. Most of those decks, they play like a 500 global, they play like like maybe 1,000 like on opponent's turn. They play things to buff their board. If they put down those and just behind a global, you're already having a side attack or crash. And then if they do like Sao does like I think they have like 1065s behind the global, and then they do counter and they give 500 act. They literally shut you down in every lane. Like you just have to crash your entire board as soon as you hit one. This combo is bad. And then the only way to alleviate this is to play blue events at level 1. In which case, if like you have the situation comes up where you hit 0-5 and have to Ricky to level, or you hit 0-6 and maybe you can 0-6 and you have to clock draw to level, but then you could like possibly Ricky to try to scum a different color. The thing is, like, you may not be able to put those equips down at all if you try to run the blue event with it. So you have to run the yellow event, which doesn't give power, and then your 1/0 just isn't a good card. So yeah, this choice combo is terrible. Also, I think the choice trigger is, I think it's okay. It's just like the fact that it only gets you like level 2 or higher for the most part is kind of not the best. Because usually in like a deck like this, like whenever I hit like a gate, sometimes I'm grabbing a brainstorm because I just couldn't see it earlier. With this, it's like you have to grab a level 2 or higher. Maybe that's not what you need. That's just like a small pet peeve of mine with the trigger. That's not really beside the point. Now we have the 1/0 Shimakaze. I think it's like a 4/5. If you play a Climax or something, it gets 1500, so it goes to 6k, 7k, 107k on reverse combo. Very standard. I don't think I have to explain. This is tons of people use it. I think the trigger lineup's terrible because I don't like this. I mean, it's probably fine in standby, but I don't like a 1-0 like just Shimakaze profile because I feel like it doesn't scale well into the late game. It's like very easy to deny it, right? Like if something like Saikano comes around, they just like completely stop this. And then even if it's not, like even if your opponent's not playing around their verses, right? Like what do you do at level 2 with a combo like this? And the deck I really tried this with was with the 8 Pants build that Japan liked. And I didn't like that trigger lineup at all, because 8 Pants, just like your hand gets flooded with Climaxes, you don't have enough ways to get them out. That's why I'm thinking like maybe Gate Pants would be a better split. And then there's the combo that I like, but this one's a little rough. It's a 2-1. It's like 4/5 or something. It gets a lot of power if you have the other 2-1 in memory that goes to memory for free. So basically it's like a 2-2 for the first one. The rest are like slightly discounting it by like a fraction of a stock every time you put them down. It's a 2-1-9/5 once the other card is in memory. That's all that matters, because otherwise you're not putting this thing in the front row. And it has Climax combo with Book on attack, top check 4, add 1, and then stock charge a card from grave. I think this is really good because level 2 walls, I feel, before Day Live, mind you, because Day Live got the My Little Shido event, and they also introduced a lot more hate for level 2s, given how strong the plethora of level 2s that Day Live introduced to the game, right? You have like the scrying level 2s and stuff, so people now are actually trying to combat level 2s. When I first got this playset, Day Live had not come out yet, and this 2-1 was positioned well in the meta. I can understand it not being the greatest now, but it's, given how bad the Maguro and the Shimakaze are, if you don't want to play the gate blue card combo, the 2-1 combo is pretty serviceable. It's very high rolly though, because when you play this book combo, you are not playing a level 1 combo. Which is, okay, so what, now you're hoping you have to high roll into matchups that are both favorable for you. You have to hope you can get these pieces while also skirting around a very suboptimal level 1 game. But the payoff is pretty good if these things can sit on board for 2 turns, because like the first turn they break even because they stock charge you. But if they can sit on board, which is what they're supposed to do, because they're 1-0, or they're 2-1, 9/5s, they're usually play this with standby. So they're usually behind a level, 1500 assist. So they sit at 11k. That's usually enough to hold board. They can usually hope to find a counter to exert some more pressure. And then if you get a second turn of Book, you're now +4 stock, +2 stock per, because like you held board, so you don't have to do anything there. And then you looped combo, so you get extra stock, and then you keep hand. And then you're like usually sitting in a really good spot if you can get that off. Now let's get into the Climax combos for the finishers, because of course we've talked about the level 1s, but we need to get into those level 3s, because what are the payoffs for these top ends? So first off is like the MVP of the entire set is the Pandora combo. It's on a standby. Standby is not the greatest trigger in this set, I'm just going to be honest. There's like 2 good cards, and then everything else is kind of absolute garbage. But standby is really good for a top end like this, where you need like the modular damage. Especially with some tricks we'll go over later. The support behind this, though, is what really makes it. This card has 2 support cards that are both insane. And I think that as like a whole makes it amazing. So the actual card, though, what it does is it comes to play heals. And then it has on attack, pay 2, ditch 1. Gain 1 of 2 effects of your choice. You either burn your opponent for 3, or you gain the following effect cross turn. When a card is sent from field to grave, burn your opponent for 1 up to twice per turn. So that second effect is a little bit rough, because this is the easiest thing for your opponent to stop. If you're using that second effect, the ideal scenario is you have double savers in the back row. I think it's like 8 stock or 9 stock, Off the top of my head, I don't think I could actually tell you. I probably should have took note of that. Um, you have 2 Pandoras in the front row, double saver back row, random garbage card. These Pandoras have to win board, which is another reason these 2-1s are the better segue into them. If you play down these 2-1s, since their goal is to win board, if they can win board in 2 lanes behind the assist, your Pandoras now have 2 open lanes to swing into, which means that they won't get reversed. Because that's the biggest thing. If these things die on the attack phase, this combo is the burn 1. Both basically the entire combo is kind of bad because burn 3 is okay. Pay 2, ditch 1 for it. I feel like you're being outclassed by other sets. And the burn 1 is where you get like the machine gun burn 1s, because each one of these is 4 burn 1s with this setup, which is extremely potent. But like I said, you have to win 2 lanes with it, and then even worse, you have to crash another. Your opponent has to let you crash 1 lane and then win 2. So, you know, if they're playing around reverses by like having ways to sack their board, they play around this. If they're playing around reverses by walling up, they're playing around this. If they're just like don't have a board, they're playing around this. There's a lot of stuff that stops this. And they're playing anti-burn when they stop this. But yeah, double saver back row. 2 of these have to win lane. You have to crash a lane. So your card leaves board, burn 1 twice. You use the field saver, summon your card back. Because the field saver left board, burn 1 twice, and then as soon as attacks happen, as soon as they front attack any card on your board, you sack counter. And when you sack counter, burn 1 twice, and then you field encore, burn 1 twice. Usually that's enough to like seal the game there, hopefully, but it is what it is. It's very easy to play around, but it is very potent when your opponent doesn't. So basically, I think this is like one of those things that catches a lot of people off guard, because if they've never seen this set, because this set's not popular, let's be fair, they will probably let you do that a couple times before, catching on. But now the next top end, we have this blue top end. It's on pants. It's come in play salvage, an event, or character. So that's pretty good. Gets you an event. That's actually extremely important in the set, specifically an item. And then if it has a blue marker, which the events are marker, they marker themselves under cards. They're like equips. It has the Climax combo. I think it's like pay 1, ditch 1 to top check 5 of opponent's deck when you play the Climax. So it's as soon as you play the Climax, you have to pay the cost. Get rid of any cards you see there, and then they shuffle up. So it's kind of nice because normally with these you have to like attack first before, and then it's usually like top check like 3 or 4. This is top check 5, which is a lot more. And then you get to do it multiple times at once. So that way it's not like, top check and then they shuffle and then they cancel and you top check again and then it's like clean again. And they shuffle. You just do it all at once. They shuffle up. It's better against compressed decks than uncompressed decks, of course. It's just like an okay top end. It's pretty consistent. You usually pair this with a restander to hope to get some like big damage in. Not a whole lot to say about it. The trigger's okay. It's definitely probably better with the, like I said, the gate combo, because you have a level 1 and then level 2, so you want to recur the gate. While these other combos are like not as easy to recur. Or I don't know, with like the 2-1 combo, I feel like Pants isn't a good trigger, because usually with that 2-1 combo, you want to stand by out the 2-2 behind it. So you can't like 2-1 into this 3-2. I don't think that would like really work as far as like the deck would be concerned. Next up is this 3-2. I don't know if this is a good card. I tried playing it a couple times. It's a 3-2, like 9-5, I believe. Maybe 9k. And it has come in play. It gains 4,500 power cross turn. And then it has also, it early plays if it has 2 red markers on board. So here's the problem, is the only red card that is a marker in this entire set. Because the only way you get face-up markers in this set is through the equips. Is not very good. And getting 2 of them is even harder. There is a drop searcher for it, but even playing the drop searcher felt terrible. And then this card eats a lot of stock. And there's no way to really alleviate that part. So there is like only one way to stock gen in this entire set, and it's a card that requires you to have 2 equips on board. The problem is, if you're trying to play this as an early play, you're playing 4 equips for that, which is the red one that's a 2/0. So how would you get the stock by level 2 to early play it if at level 1? Because like this thing will like eat all of your stock, like 100% of it. Like when you actually do play it, if you try to go for 2, because that's already 4 stock at 2/0. Like the deck just doesn't generate stock, and it's not efficient enough to actually keep up with that. I don't think the gate trigger is nice. But yeah, like I think the early play is like a little bit like stretching, and then like if it doesn't hold board, it would be super bad, right? Like if that 13k level 2 early play like doesn't hold board, I think that you instantly lose because of how much like stock goes into this card and the fact that you've warped your deck so much for this. But the payoff is on attack burn 1. It's like okay, I guess. It's definitely a lot better when you do it 2 turns in a row. Like starting at level 2, just getting a finisher out, and then like on attack burn 1, and then if it holds board, and then you do it again, it does feel good. It's like almost a real card. By the way, these finishers are in order of how good I think they are. So like, it's kind of like one of the worst finishers in the set, but it's okay. Like it wasn't the worst. It wasn't like the actual worst, because the actual worst is this restanding Musashi. Once again, I don't really like the choice trigger. I don't think it's the best. I think it's okay-ish, but like it doesn't like make me want to play the card, right? Like this 3/2 that's on a gate. Gate's always a good trigger. It's probably the best trigger in the game. The choice is okay trigger, but it doesn't like make me want to play this card. It's a Musashi. Musashis are very variable in how much damage they do. And then it's a restander, probably the worst way to do damage. But even worse than that, it's like pay to ditch a copy of itself. So you can't even do, it doesn't matter how good your game is. Unless you're like the ultimate sack and you're like playing gate choice and you can tri-field this and hit a gate on every attack. You can't tri-field this. You can only do dual lanes. And you have to have 4 copies of it to do 2 of it. There is a 3/2 early play that can salvage it. But, sorry, it's 3/2, or sorry, it's pay 2, ditch 1 on reverse, by the way, as well. So you have to get 2 reverses on top of that with this 11k card. It's just not a good card. Like, right, like a restanding Musashi sounds hype. You start to play it, and it's like, wow, I need 4 copies of this in hand at level 3. Like, you trigger one early, you no longer can even do double combo. That's like actually how bad it is. I mean, I don't think there's much else to say. As like an auxiliary finisher, like just throwing in Musashi, I think it's okay. I mean, Musashis are Musashis. Maybe a restander is better at that point, though. They're like serviceable. I think Musashi is just like it's too variable, but it does what it does. It's fine. And I do want to mention, I did forget one card because I kind of forgot about it. There is a 2/2, the level assist or the 1500 to front that I always have been talking about, that goes behind the 2/1, and that is also like a support for the Pandora. That also has a gate combo. I didn't put this in here because I kind of forgot about it. It has just like on play of the gate salvage or something, but it's on a 2/2, so I don't even see that as a real combo. Because if you're playing like that'd be blank gate standby, and I don't think this set is good enough in any way, shape, or form to like run a climax spread like that. Because there's no way you're playing down that 2/2 without like a standby. So yeah, that's like kind of just like so. Now we know what we've got. So let's kind of get into like what the actual cores are, right? Because we kind of went over the cards. So level 0, you can break down things into utility and board, right? Like cards serve one of 2 functions. They're either like utility cards that provide you, they provide things for you throughout the game, while board focused cards are like just for at level 0, like they don't do anything after, and they don't really like help much. So we have A, B, and C. That's just kind of like scoring generally, just kind of how good I feel the cards are. So we have the Ricky. It's the Rem Ricky from ReZero. Just pay 1 clock self, search a level 1 or lower. I think what kind of hurts this is how bad a lot of the level 1s are. But it is a good Ricky, and it has on attack mill top. If you mill a climax, draw ditch. It's like an okay secondary effect. You have a tap self salvage brainstorm. Salvage is the best way, I believe, because the problem is like known information is better than unknown information. If you are using a search brainstorm and you mill the card you want, like you can never not have the okay. How to explain this? I'm sorry, I'm struggling with this part. You know what's in your grave. You don't know what the top four cards of your deck are. If you're using a search brainstorm to find a card that you need and you mill it, that's very unfortunate. With a salvage brainstorm, you know if the card you need is engraved or not, so you have more information going into your brainstorm if you should brainstorm or not. Sometimes you will go, I need to just sack and mill it, but other times you'll be like, I could brainstorm here, but my grave doesn't actually have what I need, and I don't really need to mill the deck, so maybe I just won't. Right? So it's like I like salvage a lot more. And then it also gives a card 1,000 power when you trigger Climax, which can help with like some of the power issues with the set. We have the Global 500 as the next card, and then it's a Field Encore. It's the reason it's so high up is just because of the combo with the Pandora, because the Pandora is very potent if you can get it off. And then the last card is also going with the Pandora engine. It is a spammable Azusa. All you have to do is discard the Pandora. This card is insane. It gives you amazing deck speed, and like you're not running a bad card. It's just like you put this in the back row, and then you just Azusa whenever you feel like it. And then it's also a global 1K to the Pandora, so it can maybe help it win a lane if it has to. But overall, the Pandora I feel like swings in kind of weak. Now is like the B. This is like kind of like cards that you don't feel terrible playing, but at the same time they could be better. We have the TD drop climax salvage, which is always an okay effect, especially with like some of the more like pants builds, right, where you're going to be getting more climaxes in hand and maybe you don't want to be using them as much. And then it also has pay one, sack self, grab a sword. That's decentish because the sword is an okay equip, and once you have an equip in this set, I feel like you're pretty much good to go. Next up is the clean cut. It's just vanilla 2/5 clean cut. I think that's pretty weak, but clean cuts are always good because they let you get an extra attack in. I never run more than 2 of this in the set because I feel like the clean cut is, like I said, it's just not good enough. It's only 2/5 power. Then is Ophelia. This card let me down a lot because I didn't realize this marker is face down. But it has, when the card in front of it reverses a card, you can take a card from your grave and put it face down as a marker. That's unfortunate because it means that all of your cards that need face-up markers, she can't like randomly get you a marker without running these bad equips. And then at the end of your opponent's turn or something, it's like somewhere in your opponent's turn near the end, you can pay 1, bounce her and her marker back to hand. So it's like every card in your deck can be like a pay 1 plus as long as you keep her on board, as long as you can get reverse. It's okay. I think it's a decent card. It's a good utility card. But I mean, once again, it's one of those cards that loses to Dow, right? Like they play down like the Shido and they blink it, and then you lose the marker, and you're like, oh wow, this is actually vanilla that lost 1,000 power. But outside of like the matchups with like blinkers running around, I think it's okay. It's not actually the best. Then we have the Pandora. I think this one's like on play top check, and then you can like leave it there, put it in waiting room, which is always a good effect. But then it also has bounce back when you play a climax to give something 1,000 power across turn. That's a decent effect. Definitely helps in like more board focused decks, especially because giving something extra 1,000 power is good. The scry is good, helps you have more brainstorms to keep more hand. Because usually board focused decks, they sacrifice like plussing combos for like board combos. Like they play like gate or standby, and then they don't actually like have a lot of ways to plus hand because they're trying to plus board, so then hand can become an issue. So that on play scry can help, especially with like hitting things like brainstorm, especially when you can repeat it. Next up we have it's the tap self search brainstorm. It makes a card unbombable for a turn, and it searches. Like I said, I think that search is worse than salvage strictly. And not being able to be bombed is a lot worse than 1,000 extra power. This would almost be C tier, but it's just Tap Self Brainstorm, so it's got a little bit of merit. And then we have the drop search of the set. It's a drop search. It scries on play. That's good, but it's also just a drop search. So, I mean, I think with like all the other utility in the set and like the way that you can use stock, drop search is very low value. And I almost think you just don't play this. I think playing this is wrong. Now we go on to the cards that like you could play, but like why would you? One of these is pretty controversial. I think I'll go over that though when we get to it. So first up is this Ophelia from the TD, 500 to front, pay 1 sack self, top check 4. This is you just pay 1 sack to top check 4. I've never liked effects like this. They're not very selective. It's like a drop search that you have to sack. It's 500 to front. It doesn't do anything other than the sack self. Well, I don't think this is like a real card. This is almost junk, but like some people can include it, especially in something like a standby deck where you need a little bit extra speed. Sometimes they include stuff like this, but I think it's a waste of stock. Then we have the Draw Brainstorm. I don't know, this set's heavy with events, so maybe you do want to play the Draw Brainstorm. It's also got a really good secondary effect. On play, top check if it's a character, add Ditch. Why is that good? Because it's a Brainstorm. It's a 5-card Brainstorm the first time it comes down. Decent card. But then it's a Draw Brainstorm, so it kind of sucks. Then we have the Mallet Monkey. I think it's a monkey. Whatever. It's 500 global, I think, and then it also is pay 1 sack to salvage the boots. The thing is like unlike the drop Climax, this has a worse like main effect, and then the bond that you have to sack it for. I think the boots are just infinitely worse than the sword. Then we have pay 2 free fresh. I think that's like a horrible waste of stock, especially with like when we go over this set. We have the spammable, obviously, of the Brainstorm. There's like these events to just mill. This set has deck speed. This set has deck control. You do not need to be paying 2 stock. And like I don't think there's a single build of this deck that you want to be paying 2 stock just to free fresh. And I don't think there's a single build that you're going to be playing this. Because like the other problem with this card is when do you get this, right? Like, are you just holding this in hand the entire time? Is this part of your hand sculpting? Are you wasting this? Like because all lists I see only play 1. Because it doesn't do anything, right? It's just a 2K, just pay 2 free fresh. Where are you finding the space for this? And even if you're only putting 1 in, why? Like, where's your hand sculpting for this? Are you going to Ricky for this, like, early and just sit on it for the entire game? Are you going to, like, are you playing Gate? Because a lot of lists don't play Gate. They play, like, 8 pants or something. Like, what are you doing where you're playing this? So that's, like, the big thing. Like, why play this? Oh, and that's a Married Life, I think, is the next one. It's a Married Life. I don't think those are super good. Those slots are... It comes down, once again, to, like, how many slots do you have to put... Because a Married Life, you want to have at level 1, right? Because that's, like, the entire purpose. By the time you're level 1, you want to have found 1 Married Life to help you get reverses and contest board. Consistently find 1. How many do you have to play for that? 2, 3? Are you going to waste a search on the Married Life if you're playing it? Once again, like one of those things that I'm just not like a super big fan of because it does cost deck slots. It's not the most relevant card. I just don't like it as a card. Then we have a drop salvager, and then it gives something 1,000 power when you use the drop salvage. It's kind of like the drop searcher. I get the 1,000 power is a little bit nice, but like, is it better than a scry? I don't think so. The guy looks cool. He's got a big shield. But yeah, it's just a drop salvager. I mean, it's like an okay effect, but like I think you'd be better off using the stock on more mill or something. Then we get into probably the most controversial card. This is an Honor versus Rize. It's top check 3, add 1, and then ditch a card. I think that these are terrible cards. I put this on this, but so Honor versus Rizes, the problem with them is like, so in the early game, they're like okay-ish. They're there, like they're 2/5 power, so they're not like horribly weak. And then when they die, you get like a little bit of mill and hand fix. But my problem is like how these cards interact the later the game goes on. Because right, like when you play an or any other effect, right, that like gives you mill, those are like a normal Rize. Like those are proactive mill. That's like you get to mill on your turn and then make decisions based off of those mills. While these, so like these, you just have to kind of crash and just like hope your mill isn't terrible, or like there's like a lot less situations where it's good, right? Like you can't just like Rize to try to fix your hand now. You're Rizeing to fix your hand for the next turn or fix your deck for the next turn. And then there's like other things that have to do with like, so like if you're playing a also it's like the timing being on reverse. I'm gonna go over that too. But like, so if you play like an Azusa and you're not able to mill your entire deck, right? Like let's say like you obviously like mill like 3 climaxes and you're like, oh no, like something terrible is gonna happen, right? You can choose to slam a climax and like side attack your opponent or something, or you can choose the side attack to try to like soak up soul damage like off of the information you got from that Azusa, like ruining your deck. With this Rize, you crash and then randomly your deck can implode, right? Which I think is like actually like a valid concern. Then there's also the fact that it's on reverse instead of waiting room. So like the Chieri type effect where your card hits grave and then you like top check 4 and then add something. That's at the end of your opponent's attack. So like your opponent has no influence over, like they can deny the effect by sending to stock or whatever, but they have no influence over like what happens after the mill, right? Like your mill doesn't give your opponent random information on like how to like possibly change plays. This Rize, if your opponent attacks this first, they get like the most amount of information possible because you randomly dig into your deck. It's like one of those effects where it gives like your opponent all agency, right? And I don't like things that like the agency is put on my opponent instead of me as a player. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's like the other reason I can't get behind this. And then the other huge problem with this card is that Lost Decade plays a lot of events. If you're playing the set correctly, you're probably playing 7+ events. And if you're playing 7+ events and you have 8 climaxes, you have a lot of misses on this Rize. I know that's not the most crucial thing, but I do think that's another valid thing. But I don't like it because it is on reverse, so it forces you to crash if you want the mill, which then opens you up for more damage when otherwise like you may not have to crash. And then I also don't like it because like if you summon it off of something like Day Lives My Little Shido, it then like the mill, your opponent has agency over whether they let you mill or not. I just don't like it. It's just not my type of card. But we'll get into the next thing. Let's go into the board focus cards because that's the utility. That's what we're working with. So now here are the cards that hold board. We have a 1500 power coin flip. If you have 2 or more other characters, it is 2/5. It's okay. It coin flips back to hand. Those are always good. Then we have a 2/5 plus 1500 if you have 2 or less stock. It's a 4K. Holds board. This is kind of like meta dependent. Do you think your opponent's going to be playing a lot of bombs or like things that can run over 4K for some reason? Maybe you don't play that. Maybe play the coin flip and hope that it hits. If the coin flip hits, it feels really good. If it doesn't, it feels really bad. Then we have this 3K. I think this is a drops out searcher or something. No, it's a Shimakai. Sorry. It's a 3K Shimakai Can't Side. It's vanilla power, so I think it like goes on there for board, and it helps you like power pump other cards. Pretty okay card. And you have this 4K that can't side attack, I don't think, and then it goes to bottom when it dies. 2 demerits versus like no real demerit on the other one means I think this 4K is just, I think it's just worse. It can fix for yellow. I don't think you feel bad playing either of the cards in B. And those are the C cards. I think they're kind of terrible. I think one is, off the top of my head, I'm not even sure what some of these are. I think one's like a 3/5 on the turn it's played. I forget what else it did. The red one on the far right. Then we have the red one on the left, which is 2 or more other characters. It's a 4K, so it's plus 2K. The 2 or more other characters is of course a lot harder than 2 or more stock. You have to put down 2 cards in back row like as soon as the game begins. And then the last card is like on attack. I believe you top check. If you top check correctly, it gains power, and it has the pay one rest itself if nothing else is like on your board. That card's okay. It's especially good like if your opponent like My Little Cheetos you to like blow up your board. You can like keep one lane with something like this. But overall, I think it's like a lot worse than something like a coin flip or a 4K that just kind of naturally will hold board in the early game. Now, like I said, before we get into the level ones, because a lot of level ones include these, I want to talk about the events. Because these are like all the events in the set. So first we have the one, so first I guess I should actually talk about what the item cards do. All item cards, which are the top 4, have the same effect that when a card dies, or when they are removed from the board as a marker, they will go to memory if you have 2 other characters on board. And then at the beginning of your draw phase, they will come back to your hand from your memory. So they bypass the hand limit as long as you can like maintain a back row, and the cards in your front row are dying cross turn. They also all have an effect when you play the event before going under a card. So like you play the event, it applies effect to a card, and then it goes under a card. I think that part's important for later. So the first one is a sword. It gives 1,000 power and then has the same effect as the others. Then is the boots. It's on. You target a character, mill the top card of your deck. If the card you milled is not a level 2 or higher character, that character gets a soul that you equip it to. These are like not very good. I don't think these are good. The sword's good. Like 1,000 power for a turn. It's like okay. It's like serviceable. The boots are like 1 extra damage. They're kind of funny. They're not the greatest. The ring is you give 2 cards on your opponent's board minus 500 power. That one is okay-ish. The problem is it's a lot of slots. And if you're not playing the early play, I don't think you play this. Then we have the 2-0 event. This card is probably the best equipped by a mile. If you have 1 or less climaxes engraved, you can't use it. So you have to have 2 or more climaxes engraved. The exact like opposite of an early play, almost. It drop searches. You just like search your. Sorry, it's not even drop search. It's you search your deck for a card and then you can discard a card from hand. So you can use like a foolish burial type thing or like hand fixing. There's a lot of cool interactions with that one. There's like cards that send themselves to memory. Like there's a 2/1 that you need for the level 2 combo that will send itself to memory. So you can like equip it with that and then search out your combo piece and then send the 2/1 to memory. And then like this thing will go to memory with it. There's just like all kinds of stuff you can do with this card that's pretty nutty. Like this card is like almost the highlight of the event package. Then we have this 2-0 event. You mill 3 cards. You give a card 3k power or something like that. Then you mill 3 cards, and your opponent mills 3 cards, and you both compare powers. If your card's total power is more than your opponent's card's total power, you get to like draw 2 or something. Is it draw 2 or salvage 2? I'm not sure off the top of my head actually. It regardless, it's terrible because it's an event that you have to play alongside your other events, and then you have to compare powers, but like half of your deck is events that don't even have power, and you have to beat your opponent's cards in power, but a lot of your cards kind of suck. So I can't imagine like you play this against like Sunshine or something, right? Like, and they just start milling like 10k power cards, and you're like, this event sucks, right? So yeah, that card's bad. Then we have the 3-1 event. It's like you have to have an Ophelia on board, which I think there's only 3 cards with that name. 1 in the TD, 2 in the booster. They're the level 0. There's like a level 2, and then there's the level 0 in the TD that's like top check 4. You top check 10 from your deck, and you choose a card there and put on your board. This is terrible because there's not a single card in Lost Decade. There's not a single card that doesn't have a come and play effect at level 3. Because this is the only reason you would use this to get like 1 stock level 3s, right? You're playing an event you can't search to save 1 stock on a level 3 and lose its come and play effect. Your come and play effects are like heals, they're salvages, they're like the ability to be a Musashi, the ability to be a restander. Playing this card is terrible. I like the idea, kind of, but the fact that it doesn't trigger come and play effects means that it is absolutely terrible. If it was like add to hand and then play a card with the same name or something, or like add to hand like a card from among them and then like play a card from your hand for free, maybe. But the fact that just like take a card from the top 10 of your deck and then just put it on the board, that stops all like effects, and it's terrible because of it. I really wish it was a little bit better because I was kind of excited when I read the card initially. And then the other MVP of the events is the 1/1 event. You can't play if you don't have an adventure, I believe, or something like that. You just top check 4, add an adventure to hand. That's every single card in the set. That's a character. So 1/1, but then it has the beginning of your main phase, I believe. You can dump 2 of these from memory. So if you resolve 2 of them for 2 stock, you can dump 2 of them to stock charge 3. I like this a lot. It lets you pay out dirty climaxes in the mid game, and then randomly cash in on them after like the threat, like right before you use the stock, so you're not as susceptible for stock swap, right? Because normally, if you're like, let's say you had kept that 2 stock, right, and it was clean, that just makes like a stock swap Fumio on you like that much worse. Well, if you have the 2 cards in memory, it kind of like is like slight protection. And then you also get to +1 stock, which is also good. So it's like stock gen, plus it's like removing resources from zones that your opponent has as much interaction with. Fantastic card. The only real problem is getting it to your hand, but I'm thinking if you play that like 2/1 that's like on reverse draw, it might be a little bit easier. Maybe. I still haven't really played around with that one. So now I kind of want to talk, now that we've talked about the equips, I want to talk about level 1 utility cards. There's not a whole lot of them. I say the best one is this 4K. It has, if you have 2 equips on board, it goes to stock for free. Cards that go to stock are so powerful because it's like the one limit. It's like the one thing in Weiss Schwarz that you don't actually generate like a lot of. Like you have to attack, but then like when you use a brainstorm, as soon as you start playing early plays, you're like usually using, because if you play an early play, you're probably brainstorming that turn as well. That's like 3 stock. You set yourself back an entire turn cycle as far as stock progression goes. So this card going to stock is fantastic, even though the condition is a little bit rough. But what's cool with this one, like let's say you have like 2 equips, you have 2 of this guy in hand. You can equip 1 equip to a card that's going to win its lane, 1 equip to this guy. You crash the one without the equip first. He goes to stock. Then you take the second one, you crash him. He goes to stock, your equip goes to memory, and then your last card wins its lane. Then when that card dies, its equip will go to memory. If you have 2 back row, your event will blink back. And that's like a pretty common line of play when I played like the 8 Pants Japanese lists. I thought it was really cool, and I think this card has like a good place, especially in something like the Gate deck, where you're playing the Gate trigger, you're playing the sword more, because it interacts really nicely with the sword. Then the next one is a 1/0 4K. It's a drop searcher, but it's also a 6K if it has an equip. It's a really good card. Drop searcher's on play, so it's fantastic. Did I not include the other one? Okay, so something I want to mention then real quick, because I actually took a top check 3 off of this list that I think some people play. Did I put this in the garbage? Oh, I guess I didn't. It's really good editing on my part. I don't even think I included it then, because there's a 1/0 that's like top check 3 when you equip it with something. It needs like 1500 power on play. That would have been in the garbage section. Sorry about that. But it's a utility card, so that's why I was wondering about it. So yeah, that's that card. Then we have the 1/1. It's a stock bomb. It's got the soul trigger, so it combos nice with choice. I think that's a decent card. Um, I don't know what you're using the 1/1 stock bombs on. I think it's like nice if you hit your opponent to 2 and then like it's searchable off the Ricky. It's grabbable off of choice. It does the same thing as a level 2 stock bomb would for the most part. I think it's okay. I just don't know how relevant it being level 1 is. Because like the level 2s usually do something else, while this just has the removal effect and costs the same amount of stock. So I'm not sure. I think you can play it, it's fine. Then we have the 1/0. It's a Shimakai, and it also is a drop bonder to the red event. It bonds, drop bonds to deck. So like you have to search deck for the event. I think it's okay. It's a decent card. The problem is the red event's not very good. So like if you're playing the red event, you play this. If not, you don't. Then we have in the C tier we have another Shimakai, I think, and then it like can't side. Why? It's blue, I guess. It helps with the Shimakaze that you can play, I guess. I mean, it's not very good. And then we have a 1/1 level assist that has pay 1, ditch 1, search your deck for an item. It can grab you an item, but for an extra stock, and you had to pay 1 to put it on the board. I don't think it's very good. It's got a soul trigger that might be relevant. I'm not a big fan of this card because, like I said, I don't like using stock for something that like does next to nothing. I could just play more of the event and draw it or something. Now we're going to talk about the level 1 cards that hold board. This is why this deck sucks, because your cards that hold board are terrible. I don't think there's a single card in here I would say is good. Like, if you're playing Standby, I don't think there's a single card. In fact, the best card at level 1, I think, I non-ironically believe this, is this 1/1 Vanilla. 1/1 7k Vanilla from the TD. That has a clock bonder that gives it 1,000 power. So it can be a 1/1 8k. Your other cards, I put in the garbage. Your other 1/1 is also 7k, but it doesn't stand if you don't have another character, which sounds fake until like randomly your opponent like wins your board, or like I don't know, something terrible can happen. There can be times when your card like literally just won't stand. Think about it. You do a standby early. Yeah, imagine that. You do a standby early. Your opponent like bounces your back row or something, or like you don't have a back row. You just like hit a standby trigger and they kill your front row. And then your 1/1 gate legitimately doesn't stand. It just stays tapped. You can't attack with it. Like, that is such a terrible downside. You never play that card. So I think you play this vanilla over that. And I can't think of another set that I've ever looked at and said, the best card I could play at level 1 if I'm trying to hold board is a vanilla. That says a lot. Then we have a 1/0. It's a bomb, but it gains 2k on your turn. So it runs over something and holds board. I think that's a really good card. It's from the TD. It's great. Then, of course, we have a generic 2k counter, 2k counters, 2k counters. They're always fine. Never amazing. It's usually tied into the quality of your other cards, which, like I said, right now, probably pretty bad. Then we have a 1/0 Shimakai, or Taige. I always forget the name of this profile. It's 500 for every other, so it's a 6/5 without, as long as you can hold the board. I think that's okay, especially given how like free the condition is. And then the last one is a 1/0 bottom deck bomb with some other effect that I forget. It's okay if you need removal, like if your opponent has like a lot of really annoying cards. It's cost 0 bomb, like I said, sorry. So your opponent's like playing like Milky Homes or something. You have that in your locals, you could like throw this in and kind of mess with them. Okay-ish card. I legitimately think the 1/0 5k on your turn, normal reverser, is probably the better bomb, though. Then we have the other cards. One is like a 3k Leafa counter. First card, go in order, is if you use an event, if you have a marker on board, so like if you've used an event and that card hasn't died. This card is wow. I keep forgetting what this card does. 1/0 4k, if it has a face-up marker. So this isn't one that like piggybacks off of like the markers of other cards like your combos do. This card specifically has to have a marker. It gains 3k power. I think that's okay if it wasn't for the fact that, like, after testing, especially with it being red, after testing, this card, it is so hard to get a marker in in some of these decks, just because like of how many you have to run, and you have to find it early, or you have to like pay a stock to get it, and then you have to have like one marker per copy of this card. It's 7k. That's pretty cool. It also instantly loses the blinkers. That's also a downside. I think it's almost kind of cool, but it's not the best. Next up is this one. I think this is like a Leafa counter. It's 1500 power. It's not very good. I don't think you play it. Leafa counter is kind of cool, but it doesn't give enough power. Because right, normally a Leafa counter's like a 2/5 counter. That's enough power for it to be like a relevant counter. Plus the effect. This one's like not even a relevant counter, being so like little. I know Sal plays them, I think, on a 1/1, but like maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe this could be bumped up a tier. Maybe it's serviceable. And then the other card is a blue card, which is better than red, especially with regards to its effect. If it has a face-up marker, I believe it gains 2k power and a soul. Soul's pretty nice. It being blue is nice because the only events at level 1 are blue and yellow, which means that red gets like horribly shafted on that because you like 1/0, you can't actually play the event. Your 1/0 would be a 4k. This one would be 6k, 2 soul as long as you have the event. I think it's an okay option for board. But, you know, enough of level 1. We've kind of gone over it. It kind of sucks. You don't really have a lot of good cards, especially if you're trying to hold board, which makes standby significantly worse, which is why I told you, like I said, you're probably never going to be playing 8 standby when your level 1 options are so terrible. Level 2, though, what we have for utility is I have a stock bomb that had some secondary effect. I think... Wait, was this a stock bomb? Or is this the level assist? This is the level assist that has pay 1, ditch a climax, salvage a climax. So there's a climax swapper at the beginning. The only climax swapper in the set. A lot of your top ends don't have dig. There's actually like no dig at all in this set, except for the card that, oh, I see now why I didn't have that card. I put on the wrong slide. The 1/0 at the end is the, when it's equipped with a card, pay 1, ditch 1, top check 3. So the problem with that is you have to put it on the board and then waste an equip on it just to get your dig. So I don't think it's that great. And that's your only way of finding like random cards that you can't search. So that card's not very good. That's this blue card here at the bottom. Now, this yellow card at the top, though, is your only real way to like filter climaxes. So I do think that is like a very relevant thing for the set, especially with I know you are playing pants as a trigger, but like sometimes you hit the pants trigger and the only thing you have is the other climax in gray. But if you have this, the other climax is the climax you need for your level 3. So that is a very good secondary effect, right? That is probably the most relevant one in the entire like this plethora of cards. Then we have the 2/1. It's the memory condition for the level 2 combo. This is the card I was talking about. It's come and play, draw 1, ditch 1. I guess that can maybe get you a card you need if you're like really lucky. And then it has send it to memory to top check 4 and add a card there to hand. So it's like, it's pretty good mill. It's decent hand fix. It's like, using one of the just sack self, top check 4. It's okay. It's an okay standby target as well. Is when you standby it out and then you just send it to memory and you get a little compressed and you mill your deck a little bit. It's an okay card. I really do actually like it a lot. Then we have this, in B, we have this Ophelia. This is the other one that I mentioned was one of your conditions for the 3/1 event. One of the 3 cards. It is come and play. You give a card 1500. On attack, I think you give a card 1500. And on reverse, you give a card 1500. When it dies in battle, sorry. So I think the idea is like you play this down at level 3 with the restanding Musashis. You give a card 1500. You attack with it. You give another one 1500, and then you crash it. And you give like an additional 1500 as well. It's okay. It's a lot of like random power. 4 or 5 power just like spread across the body. You just have to crash. Decentish card. And then we have one of the box toppers, I believe. This is just a bottom deck bomb. if bottom deck bomb is better, it doesn't have any additional effects. It's like whatever. If the bottom deck bomb is better than the level 1 bomb that goes to stock, then it's, you might play this. Then we have in the C category, we have this 2-1. I believe this is in the TD. It's global 1K and has pay to tap search. Because I think that like a lot of your cards aren't going to be fighting for board in this deck, I don't think that the global like 1K matters. I think you'd like for the most part, even if you were fighting for board, you'd rather have like the level assist. So I think this card is just outclassed. That's the main reason it's down here. For some reason, I have another level 1 down here. I guess I was half asleep when making these slides. I think this has like discard an item, tap, draw. It's terrible. This would be a level 1 utility. It would still be in C. It would not be played at all. It's global 1K on your turn as well to all of your adventures. This could maybe help with your power, but like the secondary effects kind of whatever. It might be like C to B if you actually wanted to play this to alleviate the fact that your Magro like sucks if you're playing the Magro combo. Otherwise, I don't think you would have to play that. Then we have the 2-1. This is a stock bomb with a secondary effect. I think it's like discard a Climax. Sorry, this one is a stock bomb that like gives a card 2,000 power and a soul, I think. It's okay. Like that's a pretty okay effect. But once again, it's like I guess the question here is, would you rather have this stock bomb or would you rather have the 1/1 stock bomb? And that really is like up to like that's like something you have to look into the meta for with which one you would prefer. And then we have this 2/1. I've played a list with this, and this card is absolutely terrible. He like double drop searches on play. So like he's pay 1, discard 2, but he's on a 2/1 to search 2. So he's like instant hand fixing. I played this with the red card, the red early play finisher on the gate. 2 stock is a lot, especially at level 2, especially if you're trying to use this to grab other cards that you want to play because you've just wasted 2 stock, and it's like how much more stock do you have for plays, right? Double hand fix is kind of nice. He gets 4K power if he has a red marker, so he sits at like a respectable-ish power. And then he has on attack mandatory mill 2 if he mills a Climax plus 2 soul. This card is like, I don't know why they put that last effect on there. I think the last effect costs power too. It could just be a little bit bigger. Instead, it has some effect that randomly costs you the game because you milled a Climax and this card swings for 5. It's or randomly kills your opponent too, I guess, if you want to be a true meme lord. But overall, I think this card is almost trash, but because I have put it in sleeves and because I think it is almost serviceable, it does get on the slide. So yeah, now here's level 2. Here's the board focus cards. And like generally how I feel about them. Once again, remember I did tell you about the 2/2 with the gate combo. It does salvage. This 2/2 is 2 soul, which is kind of relevant because some of your 2/2s aren't 2 soul in this set. And it gives 1,500 to front, and it has a Climax combo on the gate, and then it also gives Global Soul to your 3/2. So what's cool about the Global Soul with the 3/2 Pandora is, like, let's say you're in your finishing turn, right? And you have the standby on board. You have this thing on board. Your Pandora has 3 soul. You swing for 3. You hit a standby. If you standby over this card, you negate the soul trigger from your attack. Because this card would disappear, your Pandora would lose a soul, and your soul trigger would apply, and your Pandora would gain a soul. So your Pandora would still be a 3 soul. That's kind of cool. Also, against something like Charlotte or Neg Soul, you can go double of these in the back row. Your Pandoras are 4 soul that you can tear through like Neg Soul type decks or like anti-front decks. It's like kind of your only answer to those type of decks. But it is a pretty cool like scenario that can come up. So that's why this is like in the A tier. This is a fantastic standby target. Its interaction with the other card is amazing. And 1,500 to front is pretty decent. Next up is the anti-change counter. It's pay 2, sack a character. because it's a sack counter and because of how it interacts with Pandora. This card is fantastic. It's also your only anti-change, so anti-change counters are good. It is a little bit more expensive, but still a good card. Then we have the 2/1. This is a Slayer. When it attacks level 3, so it can swing it like up to 16k. Good card. Next up, we have this is the Box Hopper promo. This is probably your best card to hold board at level 2. It gets 1,000 for every other, which means it's just a 2/1 10k and has Hand Encore. That is non-ironically the best card. It having Hand Encore is definitely good in the Down matchup because you can Hand Encore it if they try to My Little Shido it. It'll still stay on board. Unfortunately, they will probably be able to snipe your back row if you're playing standby, but that is something you can't really play around. So it is what it is. Next up, we have in the B category, we have a 2/1 3/5 counter. If you're playing board focused decks, this is okay. Then we have the 2/1. He's a cool pirate dude. He gives 2k power to level 3s in front. And then if you use an item, you give something 1,000. I think the terrible thing about this is the fact that the items, none of them are backups. So that 1,000 power is only on your turn. It's very unfortunate, but that's how it is. I wish it would have been Axe Synergy or something. The 2k power is okay. This would almost be C tier, but 2k is better than 1,500, and being a 2/1 is a little more relevant. Then we have this 2/2 that gains power on attack or something. It's in the TD. It has Hand Encore. The fact that it only sits at 7/5 on your opponent's turn is absolutely atrocious. It means that level 1s can randomly run it over. And unlike the 2/1 10k that can randomly live, you don't have to Hand Encore every turn. You have to Hand Encore this card every turn. And then it swings in for 2, while if the 2/1 just wins board, it also swings in at 2, because it already won the board. And then you have this 2/1 3k. It's a memory counter. Once again, why would you play this 2? I don't think the memory counter is relevant. If it is, maybe you can bump it up and put in your deck and not feel terrible. But it's outclassed by the anti-change, and as far as a power counter goes, I'd rather just play a 3/5 or vanilla, not pay the stock to get the mandatory memory shoot. Then you have the nice meme card. These are your standby targets. These are your 2/2s now. Notice that every 2/2 that's not the back row is in the C category, because one just instantly dies on your opponent's turn. Now the other 2 are so okay. This one is a level 3 or lower bomb. This 2/2 it's 5/5 power. It dies to every single card your opponent puts on the board, but it also kills their card, and then has Hand Encore. If you're playing 8 standby, do you know what the one thing you don't have is? It's hand. So you're losing a hand every turn with the deck that's supposed to be winning board, but this card has 2 soul. And your opponent pretty much has to front it. So at the very least, it gets it opens lanes. The next card is, this card is so atrocious. 2/2, 1 soul, 7k power, 1,000 for every other, so it sits at 11k power if you have a full board. Reminder, if you're playing 8 standby, you're probably playing the card that bounces itself back to hand, and this card loses 2,000 power randomly. But all this card is 1 soul. And it has Twin Drive, but only it has a face-up blue marker. So you have to have an equip. You have to equip it to this. Your equips are good because they're recurable, but as soon as you equip it to this thing, you're trying to win board with it, you can no longer recur your events, and all you gain is Twin Drive out of it, and it has 1 soul. So if you're playing standby, you're usually in a damage deficit, right? And the idea is you bring out a 2/2, it swings for 3, your opponent eats a 3. It doesn't matter that you ate 2 swings for 2 last turn, because they just ate a swing for 3, and then your other lanes are still sticking some damage too. This thing just always swings for 1, and you're always feeling terrible about it. I legitimately so I've played 8 standby decks before. I've never been a big fan of it, but I've never had a deck where I'm pretty sure a TD will just run you over. A TD will actually just do more damage than you just by slamming Climax and crashing board. That's how bad this 2/2 is. I'm sorry that I went on this rant about this 2/2, but I just feel that it being 1 soul on a 2/2, it's susceptible to bounce. It doesn't have. It has like the pay one encore that like rests itself, which is even worse because like if it would have had hand encore, the marker would blink, and then you would be able to get your marker back and like maybe drop search again. But instead, like it keeps it. It's also one of these things that if you dual field them, right, and they both get answered, you can't keep both of them. So it's just like it's just straight up a terrible card. It's actually amazing how bad it is, and especially when you start to play it. Right when you're in like that mid game, right, and you're playing like a standby deck, and you're a little bit behind because you are playing standby at like one point to get this 2/2 out, or maybe your opponent pounced the 2/2 and you have to hard play. That feels even worse because it only swings for 1. I think it's a terrible card. You'd rather play the 2/1 box topper. You get 1,000 less power, but a much better card, and it's less susceptible to doubt. Now, level 3, because this is it. This is it. We've almost went through every card, right? I'm gonna like kind of explain like where I think this is in the meta. So best card in the set as far as like level 3, just vanilla level 3s, is the early play healer. It comes out 2 or less climaxes. That's pretty standard. But it gets 500 for every other card on your board, which means it's just an 11/5. That's really good. 11/5 early play healer. Holds board, heals. What more can you want? Fantastic card. Then you have the TD Restander. I think this card is fantastic as long as you're playing with the pants top in that can remove a lot of the climaxes from your opponent's deck, and then you get in there with the restand. It's on reverse. If it has a blue marker, it gets 2k power, so it's at 11/5. If you're using blue markers, you're probably using the sword, so it'd be 12/5. If you're doing the pants combo, it's got a climax out, so it's 13/5. It's pretty easy to get it up reverse as long as your opponent doesn't have like sack counter type stuff. Pay 3, ditch 1, I believe. Restand. Pretty standard TD type effect, but like it is a respectable power, and it combos nicely with one of the level 3s. Then this early play, the next one is I think it gives like a ton of power, like 3,000 power on attack or something, or on play, and then it also is -1 level for some reason, 2 or less climaxes, I believe. And then it also salvages your Musashi. It's okay. It's like a plussing early play is always nice. Like, whenever you play down the early play and it just automatically gets your hand back. Alleviates like hand pressure that you might be feeling in the mid game on top of like putting out a board presence. The fact that it grabs the Musashi is also nice because if you're playing the terrible Musashi deck, you do need like 4 of that thing in hand, and this will help you find additional copies. And then 3,000 power is once again extremely nice because the Musashi doesn't need a reverse and isn't the biggest card. The next card is a 3/2 stock healer that gets 1,000 for every card in your back row, so it's at 11k. It's even weaker than the early play, despite it not early playing. But then it also attacks, and your opponent can't use backups. It's okay standby target because it right if you stand by this out and then your opponent can use backups, hopefully they can anti-change it. Is I think the idea, and it's like more likely to live because a lot of decks are more likely to play anti-change counters than it is like bombs, because bombs are reactive while like counters are proactive. While if you stand by this thing out, you can deny your opponent a stand. This is like one of the few good standby targets, right? And then the last card is, I think it's like a Shimakai on attack that's like from the TD that heals. And then the reason I bought the set is the last card we have to talk about. And it is probably the worst card I've ever had the fortune of playing. This card has 4 effects, and they all suck, especially when you get into them. But, okay, so first, if it has a blue marker, it gets, first, appreciate this card. It's 3/2/3/5. 3/2/3/5. So little power for no reason. If it has a blue marker, plus 7,000. It's 10/5. The benefit of being a 3/5 power level 3 is that like if it has a marker, it gets 500 more power than like a vanilla. This card, like the power on it is already like, why is it so low? If it has a yellow marker, gain a soul. So now it's got 3 soul. Is 3 soul better than 2? The fact that it's mandatory, not modular, I think it's a lot worse. Um, Especially with like the way this card works, you kind of don't get to decide if it has 3 soul or not. You kind of do, but you kind of don't. If that makes sense. Then the last effect is if it has a red marker, it gets the effect that on attack you can discard a card to burn your opponent for 1. That one's like okay, right? Like discard 1, burn 1, cool. And then it also has on play, you take up to 3 cards from your hand, 3 items. Those are the equips, and shove them under it as a marker and draw that many. So the idea is that like you have the items floating in memory, they come back to hand, and then you shove them under this and draw the same amount of cards. Okay, so I said this deck doesn't have a way to find things. I guess you could say this would be a way for you to find your climax and your finisher, right? Okay, so what top end are you playing, right? Like let's go back to these top ends. So your top ends are standby, which doesn't play. If you're playing standby, you play like 3 of the drop search, right? Like you play 3 of the drop search event, you'll probably have 1 to 2 in hand. So this would be a 3-2 draw 1, like 10-5 vanilla. If you're playing the blue event, the blue top end, you need to have a marker under it, which means that even though you're probably playing 5 events in that, you need to have 2 on the board for this card itself. And then it's like you'd have to have like literally like because I imagine you'd be playing like 3 swords, 2 to 3 armor, so you'd be playing like between like 6 and 5 events because you might go down to 2 armors if you're feeling like really lucky with like how you can sculpt hand. And the fact that like maybe you don't need to use the drop search in the mid game as much because maybe you need the sword for the consistency with like the gate combo, right? So you're only playing like maybe 4 swords, like 2 armors. That's still 6 events, and you need to have 2 of them in your front row. So you have 4 additional events. Are you going to have all 4 of those in hand? I don't think you are. Just to be able to draw, like, you need to have 3 of those 4 in hand. So you have to have 75% of your other events, and like almost all of your total events in hand in order to get the draws. And then still, you only have a 10-5 vanilla that drew you a couple cards. It's like literally a top check 3 for 2 stock. The next one, the red one, you're playing the red event. So if you're playing the red event, the red top end, you're probably not playing any of the blue events, and you literally have a 3-2, 3-5 on attack, ditch 1, burn 1. That is so terrible when you're like you could just like be playing any other card, and then if you're playing the Musashi, you might be playing, you might have enough events for it, but like. Once again, you're probably not playing blue event. You probably play blue event in that, but would you waste it? And then even the worst thing about this, right? Because like, if you're playing the Musashi, I think the other bad thing is you mandatory 3 soul. You might not be the power that you want. So then another thing to note about this card. The events. Remember, when you play these events, it's not that the events go under. It's not that like the card gets an effect for them being equipped. It's you play the event, you target a card, the card gains an ability, and then the event goes under. That means this 3-2, you don't get any of these effects. If you equip the sword, doesn't matter. It doesn't give 1,000 power. The boots doesn't give a soul. The ring doesn't give minus 500, and the armor doesn't drop surge. You are losing effects that are better used. Like, okay, I mean, like 3 of those effects probably are like less useful, but the armor at least, like you're like losing effects that are good in the name of drawing random cards. And just to me, because like when I realized like how bad this card was, I started to get depressed because I bought the entire playset over this card. I sleeved up 12 events, 4 of each color, and my only goal was to get off like as many of these things as possible. I had 5 events in hand. This took like 3 or 4 games of testing, right? 5 events in hand at the beginning of the turn. Like, I think there were like 7. No, I think I only had like 2 out. So I had like access to a lot of the events. I got like super compressed with this deck. and then you just shove 3 events under this card, and you get like all 3 colors, and then you draw climaxes. Because what the hell are you doing? This card doesn't work, right? Um, and by the way, this is like the most high rolly scenario, right? This is like you're running like all the different colors to try to like use this card to like not be terrible. Because this card is pretty terrible without running it as like its own thing, and even when it is its own thing, it's terrible. So I can't believe how bad it is. So I got 3 colors under the first one. Then I draw like just garbage, and the only thing I have is yellow, which means my card has 3 soul, but it's a 3/5 and it doesn't do anything. So I equip 2, and then I draw 2 rings. Then I put the 2 rings under, and the 2 rings mean that my card is a 3/5 that burns 1, and I have a board that costs 6 stock, and is 2 cards that are like level 0 vanilla power. Truly one of the worst cards I've ever played with. Like this is like beyond meme bad, I feel. Because like meme bad is usually like, at least when it pops off, it's funny. This is just like actually kind of atrocious, like all the time. Very disappointing card. But now, so like we've went over the cards, right? Like I've kind of like explained my thoughts. But now, like where do I think this set is? I think that before Day Life, because I think in the meta, right? Like the meta has been shifting a lot. Power creep has become very rapid in this game suddenly. I believe, I don't know if it's like COVID hurting sales or what's been going on when Bushiroad. But we had like Saikano and Fade, and those were like stally decks, and they were a little too good at stalling. I thought Saikano would be able to be answered due to like the fact that we'd be able to print memory hate, which they've started doing. Their memory hate's a little bit more intense than I thought it'd be. If you didn't know, they have like the Summer Pockets card that dumps all of your opponent's memory if they have 5 or more. Is it all, or are they dumped down to 4? Regardless, I think that would hurt things like this, where you have like the 2/1 that you would send a couple of that to memory, and then like you may have like some equips floating in memory, and you might have like the 1/1 event floating memory. So you might have like 5 memory on your opponent's turn randomly, and they'd like make you get rid of 1, which would kind of hurt. But yeah, so they had like Saikano, right, and it was decent. And then we moved on, and we got, of course, everyone. I know Day Live, like everyone likes to complain about, but I think since Day Live, effects have gone a lot more intense. Finishing effects are cheaper, so while this deck, like right, the only good finisher in this entire set is like the Pandora combo that like it has to, like I said, it has to win 2 lanes, you have to crash another. While these other top ends, they don't have to do that at all. And they don't have like the same stock requirement, because you have to have like the extra stock, you have to have like the full board, you have to have the anti-change counter. A lot of these newer sets that have been coming out since this, their top ends are like almost free, or they're like severely discounted comparatively, which I think like the strength of this set, of course, depends on the strength of the cards around it, like the other decks around it. I think that it having so many top ends that require reverses, the Musashi needs a reverse. Even with the Pants combo that rips Climax out of your opponent's deck, you're probably playing the Re-Standard that needs a reverse. And with the Pandora combo, you need to crash against decks like Saikano, where they're playing like the JCs. JCs are very popular. Things like that do hurt you. Definitely, like bounce back effects hurt you. So like those being relevant and prevalent hurt the set as a whole as well. Day Live coming out and existing, of course, hurts the set. It's not like even like a doom and gloom thing where I'm like Day Live is insane, because I do think Day Live is like severely. I think it was like the design choices in it were poor, but the My Little Shido event existing really hurts your like I said, I thought the best deck because of how good the Pandora combo is, but like how bad the level 1 combos were. I thought the best thing to pair the Pandora with was the 2/1 combo, which involved like sacrificing level 1 heavily to stand by out this 2/2. Against a set like Day Live, they My Little Shido the 2/2. Your deck no longer functions ever. Like you will literally never get to play the game again, as after 1 My Little Shido. And then if you have these 2/2s, they can get leveled down. And then if you didn't notice when we were going over the utility cards, the way you beat cards like My Little Shido is you have good level zeros that do things on your opponent's turn. Like you can have like Snot Aqua type effects that give you stock. You can have like JCs where you can summon a JC and like summon it like back to hand. You can have like Akatsuki's, which I mean like the honor versus Rize is like the only thing you would have. But like once again, I think the reason that I don't like that one is because it puts if I put this out on board, right, it gives my opponent all the agency and like if I mill or not, like how much utility I get out of this. So that's so like yeah, the deck that I liked from the set, and I think the set as a whole kind of like folds to my little Shido. If you're playing the events, like let's say you're playing this guy that runs the stock, and you don't crash him because it's like level 1, right? Like let's say you play down double Shimakaze, you put a sword on each, you get 2 reverse, and you throw this guy down, and he's supposed to run to stock. Your opponent plays a blinker because I think Day Life plays like 3 or 4 of the Shido. I think that's what his name is. It blinks your card to memory and puts it back. They blink your Shimakaze, and now you lose the equip. The equip goes to memory, and then this guy no longer goes to stock, right? Like they can deny you so many different things at so many stages of the game that I think like this entire set like loses to that set, and that set is taking 20% of the WGP, I believe. Which is granted as like an American, but it's not really a thing that I should be paying attention to. It's like the Japanese format should be like contained at a local level. But it's just like if you were playing Lost Decade into a field of like actual Japanese format, like where would it stand? I think it just instantly folds to like not only like random stuff preventing it because of the need in the reverse, but then like it loses to Day Life, like just straight up like everything Day Life does like hurts the set by proxy. I think it's very unfortunate this set doesn't have a bouncer. It doesn't have any way to deal with Next Soul other than getting to 4 Soul, which is kind of not the best solution, but it is a solution, I guess. I think it's unfortunate the standby targets are very bad. And I think that standby as a whole has gotten significantly worse with the advent of Day Live as well, because like Day Live means that people are more, because 8 standby Day Live is such a scary deck to sit across from if you aren't prepared. People are starting to put a lot of answers for decks like that. So your 2/1s are less likely to hold board, because before Day Live came around, you could get away with stuff like the Makoto combo sitting at like 11-5, and your opponent would literally not have an answer. Like they'd be like, I'm not prepared to fight like 2/2s or 2/1s that are big. I have no answers for this. Well, now they're starting to print more and more answers for level 2s, and people are being more prepared to like fight big boards of level 2s. So the staying power of like a standby deck as a whole is weakened by the fact that like it's the problem with board-based decks, right? If you are playing a board-based deck and you're not the best board-based deck in the format, you're pretty much like a terrible deck by proxy, or like why are you playing this version? So that's why I think like I think that kind of hurts the set mixed with like the mediocre level 1 combos, and then the outside of the standby finisher, the finishers are like okay-ish to like mediocre. I think it's like B or C tier at the end. I think, well, I guess if you have an S tier, and that's like where you put like all the decks, this would probably be like B tier. Like there's like an entire tier above this that like you would probably take to a regional before. But yeah, so that's like my comprehensive set breakdown. I don't think you care about Sao. I don't think you care about. I mean, like, 'cause I think like Sao is just like it's just good deck. I don't think it does anything to stop you. I don't think like anything really stops you outside of Day Live existing, and I think you have bad matchups and things like Psychono. But yeah, that's the breakdown. You know, if you guys want to see more content like this, let me know. These take a lot of time because I feel like I have to vet like all of the decks to be able to talk about like the cards correctly, and tell you guys what is actually like what's up. Like I said, I've tested. Oh god, like somewhere between like 12 and 15 Lost Decade lists, and I still have some more I do want to test, but if you do want stuff like this, I think I can do for some other sets. I might do it for Adventure Time, I might do it for Mob, but like once again, these will come out definitely a lot later because I do need to do the testing, I need to do the footwork, need to get that grind on to figure out like what is actually good to give you guys the knowledge that you need to tackle a diverse meta game and the current meta. But yeah, if you like this, hit that like button, leave a comment. If not, say why. Maybe I just won't do it again if nobody likes it. But until next time, this is Dean signing out.